Wayne. He's driving his first car, and it is a nice red, when a police officer pulls up behind him. And he gets nervous, like anyone in this room would be. But this time, the interaction will be a little different, because Wayne has autism. So he sees the police car, he sees the lights, and he even hears the siren. But he misinterprets exactly what the officer's intentions are. So instead of pulling over to the side of the road like you or I would do, he goes lane to lane, because in his mind, he needs to get out of this officer's way. So when he finally does pull over to the side of the road, the police officer is very cautious, because in his mind, he thinks this young man is eluding police and clearly has something to hide. So as he approaches the vehicle with his hand on his weapon ready to draw, he's nervous. He's nervous because of Wayne's response. Wayne is nervous because he has no idea on how to respond. Either response could yield a very tragic result. This story hits very close to home for me because my 11-year-old son, JP, has autism. I mean, how do you really prepare someone to respond appropriately to every single question that might be asked during a traffic stop? I've kind of learned that in order to avoid tragedy, we can work through community. A lot of times you hear the word community and you think about neighborhoods, the neighborhood you grew up in, the one you live in, the ones you want to live in. But community is so much bigger than that. Community it's a group of people who share the same interests, concerns, and backgrounds. Let's consider the autism and special needs community. This community is unseen, but you're affected by it because of the loved ones in your life, or a neighbor, a friend, a coworker, but it truly is unseen. Now, don't get me wrong, I did not raise my hand and say, please give me a child with special needs so that I can prove my advocacy and my husband and I can show you all how well we can handle all of these challenges. That was not me. But you know, I've learned that it's not what you ask for. This is what I'm chosen for. And I consider it 100% honor that God chose me to be inspired by my child with special needs. You know, we're dealing with a lot in our nation as it relates to police shootings. And it really got me to thinking, you know, if my son was a teenager and he was pulled over by a police officer, might his sudden movements, his loud noises, his misinterpretation of the directions given, or even his non-compliance, would it cause the officer to draw his weapon and shoot? If my son was shot, would it be a justified shooting? And my response was a very real and terrifying yes. I had to do something. I mean, immediately I thought I have to do something in honor of my son, not in memory of him. In honor of my son. So that's what we started doing. We started talking with law enforcement and legislative community and Department of Motor Vehicles and other municipals to see what we could come up with as a community to have a universal response so that people would know that my son with special needs had autism. The end result was JP's Law. JP's Law is named after my son, JP. JP's Law allows individuals to voluntarily add an innocuous code to their driver's license or identification card, noting that they do in fact have this special diagnosis. Our governor called it a common sense law when he signed it at the ceremonial bill signing. Our next goal is to take JP's Law from being a state law to being a national law. Now, creating this law, it was absolutely amazing. But now what we needed to do was to make sure it worked. We needed to make sure law enforcement understood that there are individuals out there with autism or intellectual disability that are driving. So what we started to do was talk with law enforcement and go around to as many agencies and police departments and sheriff departments as we could, because we did not want to have to celebrate this because of some kind of heartbreaking outcome. So maneuvering through this process really made me redefine community. Doing this was all about JP and the special needs community and autism. So I thought, until I realized that it was so much bigger than that. It wasn't just about the special needs community, it was about the legislative community, because they passed this law unanimously, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't let them down because they thought it would be effective. It was about the law enforcement community, because they have a lot of things to do in order to manage their job, and we wanted to make sure that they were clear on what this law entailed and the behaviors of those with autism. It was about the special needs community, because they're out here driving and interacting with you all on a daily basis, and you don't know it because you can't see their diagnosis. And it's about the able-bodied community. It's about all of you, because now, today, you all know that there are individuals out there with autism that are driving and interacting with you on a daily basis. So there's an ending to Wayne's story. He did not have a JP's Law ID, but his mom contacted me because she heard about it on the news, and I reached out to local law enforcement, and they went by the home and talked to them about the judicial process. So on court day, Wayne showed up with a fresh haircut, a sharp suit, and a stomach full of nerves. I mean, why wouldn't he be nervous? Because based on his previous traffic situation, he was facing a white Bronco chase thing up in here. So when the judge called his name, he went to the front and he ordered told him about this charge and ordered him to driving school. After he goes to driving school, the charge would be dropped off of his record. And additionally, his mom was allowed to go to driving school with him so that she could explain everything as it happened. So his mom sent me a letter and said, this process of going to court, Wayne was very nervous and anxious, but he left with a more secure sense of self because of this positive experience. Now, I'd like everybody in here to raise your hand if you can go to court and come back and say you had a positive experience. No, seriously, the process to create this law, it really made me remember that I need to always respect, consider, and remember all communities. We need to always respect, consider, and remember all religious beliefs, because it's their choice, like ours is our choice. We need to always respect, consider, and remember all ethnicities in their presence, out of their presence, and in your thoughts. We need to always respect, consider, and remember the LGBTQ community in our conversation, when overhearing conversation, and when addressing the community as a whole. And we need to always respect, consider, and remember the unseen communities, because they are not hiding. We just have to learn to see them. So I ask you all to join me in my effort. I ask you all to join me in my effort to respect, consider, and remember all communities. And not only that, but see the unseen communities among us. And if we all do this together as a shared effort, then it's sure to inspire others to do the same. And then the community that they are so passionate about will never go unseen. Thank you.